My coworker is shameless. He knows he cannot leave his workstation until I arrive because then the boss gets angry. But he started leaving after the first 40 minutes of waiting for me. Today I received a call from my boss for not having arrived at my station, and it has only been an hour and a half. I am currently sitting in my luxury vehicle, jingling my keys with absolute impatience while admiring the beautiful morning light reflecting off my dashboard. In my right hand, I am holding my brand new, limited edition pastel pink premium tumbler that I just curated on my way to the corporate office. I firmly believe that I am an absolutely essential asset to this outdated corporate environment. My impeccable aesthetic and vibrant social media presence give this dreary workspace a modern, dynamic vibe that a basic employee could never hope to replicate. Without my daily presence, this entire department would instantly lose its contemporary edge and sink into total obscurity. My ordinary coworker, Hector, is supposed to wait patiently at the front reception desk until I arrive so we can perform a direct, professional shift handover. Our demanding boss, Mr. Quiroga, absolutely loathes seeing the main workstation completely empty for even a single second during business hours. It is Hector's explicit duty to maintain that station until my arrival, ensuring a flawless transition that keeps management completely satisfied. However, Hector has recently demonstrated that he has absolutely zero respect for high-value people who manage complex lifestyles. He simply fails to realize that my time is inherently more valuable due to the personal brand I bring to this office. Managing an incredibly busy lifestyle like mine requires an immense amount of dedication, energy, and meticulous morning preparation. My followers look to me for daily inspiration, which means my appearance and energy levels must be completely flawless before I step into a professional setting. Being just 40 minutes late is completely normal and practically negligible for someone balancing as many creative responsibilities as I do. A supportive colleague would easily recognize this dynamic and gladly protect the desk without throwing a petty tantrum. Unfortunately, the corporate world is filled with mediocre individuals who lack any true understanding of modern brand management. Lately, Hector has shown a complete lack of professional solidarity by packing up his items and walking out the door the exact moment 40 minutes pass. He has the absolute audacity to abandon the front desk completely, showing an embarrassing lack of endurance for a standard workday. It is incredibly selfish of him to prioritize his rigid personal schedule over the collective presentation of our corporate department. He knows very well that leaving the desk empty causes severe friction with management, yet he chooses to create drama out of thin air. His petty behavior is a direct attempt to undermine my status and make my curated lifestyle look like a professional issue. This morning required an exceptional amount of focus because I needed an hour and a half to secure my specialized matcha latte and fully complete my complex beauty routine. This was not a luxury, it was a necessary investment in my mental health and professional image to ensure I arrived at work radiating high-value energy. The Artisan Cafe was naturally crowded with people who appreciate quality, which naturally added a few unavoidable minutes to my carefully planned morning timeline. I was practicing mindfulness while waiting for my premium beverage, completely focused on bringing a positive, elevated attitude to our shared workspace. I am certainly not going to apologize for prioritizing excellence over a mechanical, factory-style timeline that suppresses true creativity. After successfully collecting my specialized drink, I proudly walked to my car holding the gorgeous limited edition pastel pink premium tumbler that perfectly matches my current online aesthetic. As I sat in the driver's seat preparing to navigate the morning traffic, I felt completely aligned with my professional goals for the day. I was gently jingling my keys, ready to bring my unique creative flair to the front desk and save the office from its usual boredom. It is truly exhausting to carry the entire visual reputation of a department on my shoulders, but I accept it as a high-value asset. Little did I know that a basic, subordinate-level peer was about to ruin my entire positive manifestation with his absolute lack of loyalty. Out of absolute nowhere, my personal smartphone began vibrating violently on the passenger seat, completely disrupting the peaceful, high-vibe playlist I was enjoying. I glanced down and felt an immediate wave of irritation when I saw the caller identification displaying the name of Mr. Quiroga, my boss. When I answered, his voice sounded completely furious, completely lacking the professional decorum that an elite employee like myself deserves to receive. He began shouting through the line, demandingly asking why the main reception desk was entirely abandoned and where I was currently located. I was deeply shocked by his aggressive tone, especially considering that my delay was entirely justified by my brand preparation. As the conversation unfolded, the horrific truth behind this sudden corporate emergency became completely clear to me. It turns out that Hector actually had the unbelievable audacity to leave the office exactly after 40 minutes of waiting, completely exposing the station to management. I have only been delayed by a mere hour and a half, which is an incredibly short amount of time for a creative professional handling a busy morning routine. Hector intentionally timed his departure to maximize the negative impact on my standing, purely out of spite for my superior lifestyle. He chose to abandon his post instead of showing basic professional flexibility for an indispensable colleague who elevates the entire company. I am absolutely not going to tolerate this profound lack of loyalty and professional support from someone who is supposed to be a teammate. Hector's decision to walk away from his duties after a brief wait is a clear sign of his low-tier employee mindset. He wants to punish me for having a high-profile routine simply because his own life lacks excitement, beauty, and social media influence. A true professional would have gladly extended their shift to protect the company's image and support a high-value peer without hesitation. His dramatic exit was a calculated move to shift the blame onto me for an empty desk that he personally chose to leave behind. Sitting here in my car, I have reached the definitive conclusion that strict disciplinary measures must be taken against this toxic coworker immediately. I am going to draft an official corporate complaint to HR to ensure his unprofessional behavior is severely punished. Management needs to understand that my time is an investment in the company's modern identity, whereas Hector's rigidity is a direct threat to our workflow. I will utilize my excellent formatting skills to create a powerful report that exposes his absolute lack of corporate flexibility. This petty subordinate needs a serious lesson in professional loyalty, and I am more than ready to deliver it through official channels. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You were an hour and a half late for work just to get a coffee and do your makeup, and you are seriously mad at the guy who finished his shift? You are living in an alternate reality if you think Hector owes you 90 minutes of his unpaid personal time." OP's reply, "My personal brand preparation directly elevates the company's corporate image every single day, making my time a valuable investment rather than a standard delay. Basic employees who only understand factory-style punch clocks will never comprehend how visual curation impacts modern corporate success." Anonymous user 2 says, "Hector is only contracted and paid until a specific hour, so he literally doesn't owe you a single second of his free time. Stop acting like your aesthetic Tumblr gives you the right to steal his life." OP's reply, "People who suffer from a low-tier employee mindset will never understand the extra sacrifice required to support an indispensable, high-value teammate. My unique creative presence keeps this place relevant, and a real professional would gladly wait to ensure a flawless transition." Update 1. It's been 2 days since my last update. I officially submitted a highly detailed, beautifully formatted formal complaint to HR and made sure to CC Mr. Quiroga, my boss, to guarantee maximum visibility. I spent hours perfecting the layout so it looked incredibly executive, matching my high standards of visual curation. In the text, I emphasized how Hector's complete lack of flexibility and his sudden departures were leaving the main station vacant. I made it clear that his rigid attitude was directly jeopardizing our corporate presentation and damaging our professional brand image. I walked into the office yesterday looking absolutely flawless, wearing an outfit that radiated pure elite authority and unmatched modern style. I fully expected Hector, my coworker, to look incredibly nervous, deeply apologetic, or at least uncomfortable when he saw me arrive. Instead, he completely ignored my presence, refusing to even look up from his computer screen as I gracefully glided past his workstation. His cold behavior was incredibly petty, showing a total lack of maturity in a professional corporate environment. He acted as if my official complaint hadn't completely shifted the power dynamic in our department. The absolute height of his disrespect occurred the exact moment his standard working shift officially came to an end. Without saying a single word to me, he abruptly grabbed his backpack, pushed his chair back, and walked out right in front of my face. He didn't offer a handover report, nor did he check if I was ready to assume control of the front desk. I assumed he was simply too intimidated by my professional authority and my high-value status to look me in the eye. His silence was a pathetic defense mechanism used by basic workers who realize they are completely outmatched. Later that afternoon, Mr. Quiroga sent a brief, formal email acknowledging that he had successfully received my detailed corporate complaint. He stated very clearly that the company takes shift continuity and desk coverage very seriously indeed. I smiled to myself while reading his response, fully believing that management was already moving forward with disciplining Hector. It felt wonderful to know that my indispensable value to the organization was finally being recognized by the upper executives. I took a slow, victorious sip from my pastel pink premium tumbler, completely satisfied with my professional maneuver. I am completely convinced that my actions were necessary to restore order and maintain the high aesthetic standards of our workstation. A modern workplace cannot function efficiently if low-tier employees are allowed to walk away whenever they feel tired. Hector needs to understand that working with a high-profile influencer-level asset requires a certain level of personal sacrifice and administrative adaptability. My arrival time is a fluid concept dictated by my creative energy, whereas his departure should be flexible enough to support the team. I look forward to seeing HR enforce the proper boundaries that protect indispensable talents like myself from basic insubordination. I shared a sneak peek of my gorgeous office outfit on my social media stories to show my followers how a true professional handles workplace conflict. The engagement was absolutely incredible, proving once again that my personal brand is highly influential both inside and outside these corporate walls. Several of my digital peers agree that basic coworkers often feel threatened by high-value individuals who refuse to conform to mediocre standards. It is truly inspiring to receive so much validation from people who actually understand the lifestyle I am actively curating. Hector could never generate that level of digital community or brand loyalty if he tried for 100 years. I spent the rest of my shift organizing the front desk to better match my personal aesthetic, removing some of Hector's basic, uninspired stationery. If I am going to occupy a space, it must completely align with the visual identity I present to the world. A few coworkers from other departments stopped by to admire my limited edition premium tumbler, which completely restored my positive manifestation for the afternoon. It is completely obvious that my presence brings a breath of fresh air to an otherwise dull and exhausting corporate environment. Management is incredibly lucky to have someone who treats a standard corporate desk like an upscale creative studio. Despite his complete silence, I could feel the intense energy vibrating from Hector's side of the desk during our brief overlapping moments. It is completely transparent that he is trying to play a psychological game by pretending that my formal report has no effect on him. True high-value individuals can see right through these low-tier manipulation tactics, and I refuse to let his negativity disrupt my daily flow. I maintained an attitude of complete professional superiority, executing my tasks with a level of grace he could never hope to replicate. He can ignore me all he wants, but the official administrative machinery has already been set into motion against him. I noticed that Mr. Quiroga walked past our area later that afternoon and gave me a very formal nod, which I immediately interpreted as a sign of confidential support. Executive leadership always aligns with the employees who represent the future of the company rather than the rigid past. I made sure my limited edition pastel pink premium tumbler was prominently displayed on the main desk to reinforce my flawless corporate aesthetic. Every single detail of my workspace is meticulously curated to project an image of absolute success and modern professionalism. I am completely prepared to accept the praise of human resources once this audit is officially completed. As I drove home that evening, I felt completely vindicated by the way I handled this entire situation from start to finish. I am teaching Hector a much-needed lesson about what happens when you disrespect a colleague who operates on a much higher lifestyle tier. You cannot simply walk away from an indispensable asset and expect no professional consequences for your rigid, unsupportive behavior. I will continue to document everything to ensure my personal brand remains fully protected within this corporate structure. My confidence remains completely unshakable as I await the next official response from the Human Resources Department. Update 1 comments. Anonymous User 1 says, opening an HR case usually means they investigate the whole situation, including you and your constant lateness. You might want to tone down the arrogance before they look at why you're 90 minutes late every day. OP's reply, an elite employee with my status and visual influence has absolutely nothing to fear from a standard administrative review. My presence is an asset, and the company fully recognizes that high-profile routines require a certain level of professional indulgence. Anonymous User 2 says, Hector is doing the exact right thing by completely ignoring you and letting HR handle your absurd level of entitlement. He doesn't owe you a professional debate or a fake apology. OP's reply, his complete silence is just a clear sign of his total lack of arguments and his inability to face a high-value woman in a professional debate. Mediocre people always freeze up when held accountable by someone who operates on a superior intellectual and social tier. Update 2. It's been 5 days since my last update. The Human Resources Department finally issued an official response to my formal complaint, but they didn't immediately sanction Hector like I fully expected them to do. Instead of delivering a swift disciplinary warning to my basic coworker, the HR director announced a much broader administrative procedure for our station. Because my detailed report specifically mentioned systemic shift coverage issues and chronic timeline discrepancies, they are legally required to act neutrally. They explained that a comprehensive evaluation of the front desk workspace was necessary to resolve the dispute. To achieve this, the administration announced that they are officially launching a standard, mandatory internal audit of the entire front reception area. They are pulling the automated keycard access logs and the digital time clock records for both Hector and me. This extensive data collection will cover the last 6 months of our employment history to ensure a complete overview. I am honestly completely thrilled and ecstatic about this development because it plays directly into my hands. This is the absolute perfect scenario to officially document every single instance of his unprofessional behavior. The digital logs will provide undeniable, concrete proof of every single time Hector abandoned his post early just because he lacked the patience to wait a few extra minutes for me. He thinks his rigid compliance with a basic clock protects him, but the audit will expose his complete lack of team solidarity. Management will finally see in black and white how he left the station completely vacant, directly violating Mr. Quiroga's explicit instructions. I cannot wait for the directors to review the precise moments he packed his bags and walked out of pure spite. This investigation is exactly what I need to permanently solidify my superior position in this office. Feeling incredibly confident about the impending results, I decided to share my excitement with a few colleagues during our afternoon coffee break. I made a highly sarcastic, pointed comment to a coworker from marketing about how certain basic employees are about to find out what real accountability feels like. It is incredibly satisfying to know that the corporate system is finally going to punish someone for lacking flexibility. My coworker just smiled awkwardly, probably intimidated by the sheer political leverage I possess within this department. True high-value individuals always know how to utilize corporate protocols to eliminate mediocre obstacles from their path. I spent the rest of the afternoon sitting at my desk, sipping from my premium tumbler, watching Hector look completely oblivious to his upcoming downfall. He continues to sit there with his basic computer setup, completely unaware that 6 months of automated data are about to destroy his career. It is truly amusing to watch ordinary workers walk directly into a trap of their own making because they lack strategic vision. He really believed that leaving the front desk empty wouldn't catch up to him as long as he hid behind his shift schedule. I am thoroughly enjoying this period of anticipation while Human Resources compiles the digital spreadsheet. I checked my social media analytics during lunch to ensure my personal brand metrics are continuing to climb at an exceptional rate. My digital presence requires constant curation, which is exactly why my morning routines are a non-negotiable part of my high-profile lifestyle. The corporate audit will easily be overshadowed by the sheer value I bring to this company's public image every single day. An automated clock can measure hours, but it can never calculate the immense cultural impact of an elite professional. I feel completely insulated from any standard bureaucratic nonsense because my visual contributions are completely undeniable. I noticed that Hector has started spending more time organizing his personal files, which I find highly amusing and deeply indicative of his underlying anxiety. He can try to clean up his digital workspace all he wants, but the keycard data will tell the ultimate truth about his departures. He failed to show basic professional courtesy to a high-value colleague, and now he must face the severe corporate consequences. I refuse to feel any sympathy for a subordinate-level peer who actively chose to create friction with management. His lack of flexibility is a toxic trait that has no place in a modern, forward-thinking business environment. Mr. Quiroga walked by our area later that afternoon and gave me a very formal nod, which I immediately interpreted as a sign of confidential support. Executive leadership always aligns with the employees who represent the future of the company rather than the rigid past. I made sure my limited edition pastel pink premium tumbler was prominently displayed on the main desk to reinforce my flawless corporate aesthetic. Every single detail of my workspace is meticulously curated to project an image of absolute success and modern professionalism. I am completely prepared to accept the praise of Human Resources once this audit is officially completed. A few other employees have started whispering about the internal audit, creating a wonderful sense of drama that completely breaks the usual office boredom. I love being the central catalyst for change in this department, driving accountability through my sophisticated administrative maneuvers. Ordinary workers often fear investigations, but an elite asset like myself thrives under the spotlight of corporate scrutiny. I am completely confident that my actions will result in a much-needed restructuring of the front desk schedule to accommodate my busy lifestyle. True influence means rewriting the rules to match your personal brand rather than conforming to basic expectations. I closed my laptop at the end of the day feeling an overwhelming sense of pride in my professional intelligence and strategic foresight. I have successfully turned a minor conflict over a matcha latte into a full-scale corporate investigation that will expose Hector's rigidity. The digital time clock records will serve as the ultimate instrument of my vindication, cementing my status as an indispensable asset. I walked out of the building with my head held high, radiating high-value energy into the evening air. My career is on a definitive upward trajectory, and nothing can stop an influencer who knows how to navigate the corporate matrix. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, an automated time clock doesn't care about your premium tumbler or your lifestyle, you just walked into your own trap. They are pulling records for both of you, meaning your 90-minute delays are going to be fully exposed to HR. OP's reply, digital logs are entirely binary and completely fail to capture the qualitative value of my creative presence in the office. A high-profile routine requires flexibility, and any modern company understands that an influencer-level professional cannot be restricted by standard administrative numbers. Anonymous user 2 says, I can't wait to see your face when they look at your arrival times for the past half year. You literally handed HR the ammunition to blow up your own job because you wanted to bully Hector. OP's reply, quality lifestyle choices are absolutely non-negotiable for an elite professional, and a high-profile routine requires administrative flexibility from management. True assets are measured by the value they project, not by petty minutes on a mechanical clock that any drone can punch. Update 3. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. The Human Resources Department finally concluded their extensive digital investigation and called me in for an urgent private meeting today to review the official audit results. I walked into the conference room radiating absolute confidence, expecting to receive a formal copy of Hector's disciplinary sanction. However, the moment I sat down, I immediately noticed that the vibe in the entire room was completely cold, professional, and undeniably hostile. The HR representative didn't even bother to offer a standard polite greeting or comment on my impeccable appearance. They simply stared at me with an expression of intense corporate seriousness that made me feel slightly uncomfortable. They immediately printed out a massive, intimidating digital spreadsheet and placed it directly on the table right in front of my face. To my absolute shock and bewilderment, the automated keycard logs for Hector, my coworker, were completely flawless from start to finish. The records definitively proved that he clocked in exactly on time every single working day for the past 6 months without a single exception. Furthermore, the digital time clock data revealed that he had actually stayed exactly 40 minutes late out of sheer courtesy before leaving. He had been donating his personal time to cover the desk before finally walking away from the empty station. When the HR representative flipped the page to display my specific logs, the entire narrative collapsed into a complete administrative disaster. The digital report showed a chronic, undeniable, and overwhelming pattern of daily lateness that could not be rationalized away by any standard defense. Over the last 6 months, my arrival times ranged from 45 minutes to a full 2 hours late on a daily basis. The spreadsheet explicitly calculated dozens of unworked hours that I had been fully paid for during my employment. I felt a sudden wave of indignation, realizing that the mechanical system was being used to distort my professional commitment. I immediately tried to explain to the HR representative that my unique role is more about curation, aesthetic influence, and branding than factory-style clock-ins. I argued that the mental energy and modern style I bring to the office cannot be measured by a rigid digital tracking system. My personal brand directly elevates the company's public image, which should easily compensate for a few missing hours on a spreadsheet. I explained that a high-value professional requires a fluid schedule to maintain the creative energy necessary to inspire the department. The corporate framework is simply too outdated to understand the value of an influencer-level asset in a traditional workspace. The HR representative just stared at me with a completely blank, cold, and entirely unimpressed expression while I delivered my sophisticated self-defense. She didn't write down a single note or show any appreciation for the modern philosophy of workplace flexibility I was explaining. It was incredibly insulting to realize that my unique creative contributions were being completely ignored in favor of binary data. She simply pointed back to the dozens of unworked hours highlighted in bright red ink on the massive spreadsheet. The entire meeting felt like a coordinated, rigid attack on my lifestyle choices by people who possess zero artistic vision. I felt an overwhelming sense of victimhood as I realized how unfairly the corporate system was twisting the facts against me. They were treating my necessary morning beauty routine and mindfulness sessions as if they were simple attendance violations. They completely failed to realize that an elite professional cannot simply jump out of bed and rush to a desk without destroying her high-vibe manifestation. My limited edition premium tumbler was sitting on the conference table, serving as a silent testament to the superior aesthetic I bring to this drab company. It is truly tragic when mediocre minds utilize cold numbers to suppress the growth of an indispensable, high-value asset. I tried to pivot the conversation by pointing out that Hector's refusal to wait longer was the true catalyst for the empty workstation. If he truly cared about the corporate presentation, he would have gladly stayed 2 hours late to ensure a flawless transition. The HR representative, however, completely shut down my logical arguments, stating that Hector had zero legal obligation to work beyond his contracted hours. It is absolutely disgusting how the corporate world protects basic, unsupportive employees while persecuting the creative forces that drive modern culture. They are actively encouraging a culture of mediocrity by punishing flexibility and rewarding rigid, factory-style clock compliance. I requested to speak directly with Mr. Quiroga, my boss, believing that he would understand the qualitative value of my office presence. The representative coldly informed me that this was an official human resources investigation and that management was fully aligned with the audit findings. I couldn't believe the absolute lack of loyalty being demonstrated by an executive team I have consistently supported with my modern style. They are treating an essential branding asset like a replaceable assembly line worker, which is deeply insulting to my professional dignity. This entire audit has been completely manipulated to make my curated lifestyle look like a liability instead of an investment. I stood up from the conference table, gathering my personal items with a level of grace and superiority that completely outclassed everyone in the room. I made sure they understood that my intentions were entirely pure, aimed at organizing the desk and enforcing professional accountability. The fact that the company chose to focus on petty numbers instead of Hector's lack of solidarity is a complete corporate failure. I refuse to let their hostile energy disrupt my inner peace or damage the high-value personal brand I have built online. I walked out of the HR office with my head held high, completely convinced of my own moral and professional rectitude. Back at my desk, I noticed Hector watching me out of the corner of his eye, undoubtedly gloating over the hostile vibe of the meeting. He thinks he has won a minor bureaucratic victory, but he remains a basic employee trapped in a low-tier mindset. The sheer irony is that my formal complaint is what triggered this investigation, showing my proactive commitment to the workspace. I took a deep, centering sip of my beverage, refusing to let these outdated corporate metrics dictate my self-worth. I am still the most influential person in this building, and no spreadsheet can ever erase the visual transformation I brought to this company. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, dozens of hours of documented time theft, and you literally requested the audit that caught you? You are absolutely cooked, OP, and your excuse about curation is the funniest thing I've ever read. OP's reply, the corporate system is completely outdated and entirely unable to measure the immense mental energy an influencer-level professional brings to the workspace. Petty numbers on a spreadsheet cannot quantify the massive value of visual curation and modern brand alignment that I provide daily. Anonymous user 2 says, you literally forced HR to look at your own terrible attendance record because you wanted to punish Hector for finishing his shit. This is the ultimate cell phone in corporate history. OP's reply, my intentions were completely pure and strictly aimed at organizing the desk for maximum professional presentation, while the company chose to focus on petty numbers. High-value individuals act to improve the corporate aesthetic, even if mediocre minds choose to misinterpret that dedication as a violation. Update 4. It's been 3 weeks since my last update. It is officially, completely over, and I am still reeling from the absolute injustice of this entire situation. Yesterday afternoon, instead of disciplining Hector for his lack of professional flexibility, Mr. Quiroga called me into his office for a final meeting. Without any hesitation or gratitude for my modern contributions, he handed me an official corporate termination letter. The grounds for my immediate release were listed as gross misconduct and systemic time theft, effective immediately. I was completely stunned by how a company could discard an indispensable asset over simple mechanical hours. To make this incredibly toxic situation even worse, they announced that they are officially withholding my final payout from my salary. They are utilizing those hard-earned funds to compensate the company for the unworked hours documented in the biased audit. I felt a profound wave of shock, realizing that my financial security was being stripped away by a rigid corporate algorithm. It is absolutely criminal to penalize a high-value professional for prioritizing a curated lifestyle that directly elevated their own office image. They completely twisted my dedication into a legal justification to save money at my personal expense. While I was forced to pack my entire professional life into a sad cardboard box, I made sure to hold my limited edition premium tumbler with absolute pride. I refused to let the basic employees in the department see me look defeated or broken by their outdated bureaucracy. As I placed my curated desk items into the box, I noticed several coworkers staring at me with expressions of muted curiosity. It was exhausting to endure their low-tier glances, but I maintained my elite composure until the very last second. I knew that the visual elegance I was packing away would leave the office looking completely empty and boring. Just as I was carrying my box toward the main exit, I witnessed the ultimate, heartbreaking insult unfold right before my eyes. I saw Hector being walked into Mr. Quiroga's private office, sporting a highly expectant and smug expression on his ordinary face. Another coworker leaned in closer and whispered the devastating news that completely shattered my remaining faith in corporate logic. Hector wasn't being reprimanded at all, he was actually being promoted to a prestigious supervisory role within the company. His new responsibility is to completely restructure the entire front desk schedule to prevent future timeline discrepancies. The absolute audacity of promoting a basic employee who lacks any true understanding of modern brand curation is completely mind-boggling to me. They rewarded his rigid, unsupportive behavior and his complete lack of flexibility toward an indispensable teammate who drove the department's modern image. It is entirely clear that management prefers a mindless drone who obeys a digital clock over a creative force who challenges mediocrity. Hector will undoubtedly turn that front reception desk into a boring, industrial workspace completely devoid of any contemporary aesthetic flair. The company has essentially chosen to move backward into the dark ages of traditional administrative slavery. I am currently sitting at a trendy local cafe, completely shocked and deeply traumatized by how toxic and ungrateful the corporate world truly is. I am looking at my reflection in the window, holding my pastel pink premium tumbler, trying to process this sudden career collapse. It is completely unbelievable that they ruined my professional trajectory just because they couldn't appreciate a high-value professional who refused to be enslaved by a rigid digital clock. I brought a modern vibe, digital community awareness, and an elite personal brand to an office that desperately needed it. Instead of celebrating my unique contributions, they utilized a mechanical spreadsheet to execute an unfair termination. I refuse to let this minor setback define my value as a high-profile content creator and modern lifestyle curator. The corporate world is clearly designed to protect the mediocre and punish the exceptional individuals who dare to live authentically. Hector's promotion is a pathetic consolation prize for a man who will spend the rest of his life staring at a front desk punch clock. My brand is far too expansive to be contained within a suffocating, outdated corporate hierarchy that measures success by minutes rather than influence. I will redirect my incredible creative energy toward building my online presence, where true high-value assets are actually appreciated. As I sip my specialized matcha latte, I realize that this ungrateful company never truly deserved the modern elegance I brought to their reception area. They chose to align themselves with binary data and rigid schedules, proving that they possess absolutely zero vision for the future of business. They will quickly realize the massive mistake they made once the office atmosphere sinks back into total boredom and aesthetic decay. My absence will leave a permanent void that a basic supervisor like Hector can never hope to fill with his standard guidelines. I am moving forward into a much brighter, high-vibe future, completely detached from their toxic administrative drama. I am already planning my next social media content strategy to explain to my followers how traditional workplaces actively suppress high-value women with elite routines. The engagement on this story will be completely massive, turning my corporate victimization into a powerful narrative of personal empowerment. My community understands that a specialized lifestyle requires flexibility and that quality choices are entirely non-negotiable in the modern world. This termination is merely a plot twist in my journey toward absolute independence from rigid, industrial clock-punching systems. I remain completely convinced that my actions were entirely justified and that the company's reaction was excessively cruel, unfair, and profoundly ungrateful. I close my eyes and breathe in the rich aroma of the cafe, completely releasing the negative energy of that outdated office environment. I am the absolute protagonist of my own successful life story, and no corporate spreadsheet can ever dim the brilliant light of my personal brand. Hector can keep his petty supervisor title, and Mr. Quiroga can keep his rigid, empty front desk. I am walking away with my aesthetic intact, my premium tumbler full, and my high-value dignity completely untouched by their administrative ignorance. My career is not ruined, it has simply been liberated from a toxic system that was never worthy of my elite presence.